This is the sun-scorched border between Djibouti and Eritrea, two small countries in the Horn of Africa. Guns at their ready, opposing soldiers hold their positions, separated by only a small rock wall. Eritrea is known for its long liberation war and its prickly relations with its neighbors. While Djibouti, with a population of less than 1 million, is an outpost of stability and economic potential in this conflict-prone, drought-prone region. No shots have been fired yet, but things are getting increasingly tense. The Djiboutian government accuses Eritrea of massing more than 1,000 soldiers on its border. Eritrea has refused to talk about the situation. If this David versus David battle explodes into war, it could imperil vital Red Sea shipping lanes and alter the precarious balance of power in the Horn of Africa.
I think we are heading to a kind of confrontation at that place, and if there is any confrontation, it's the whole international trade that will be disrupted.
International trade because of a prime location. Djibouti sits at the mouth of the Red Sea, one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. There are big American and French military bases here, and the country's main port handles 300,000 shipping containers a year.
Dubai is our example. Dubai and Singapore, small countries with almost very limited resources, but with new ideas, with that kind of liberal economy, good governance, we can play that role.
Because of a long-standing conflict between Ethiopia and Eritrea, Djibouti moves most of Ethiopia's cargo, which is a lot because Ethiopia is the second most populous country in Africa and it's landlocked. Camels, sugar, electronics, even arms, it all starts here. And the port's operation is about to get a lot bigger. Sheikhs in Dubai have invested hundreds of millions of dollars so Djibouti can handle the latest generation of cargo ships.
Djibouti is located at the crossroad of 3 continents. That's why Djibouti is a very good location for shipping business.
The shipping business is not the only business here. Djibouti's natural resources have wooed investors too.
2 tugs will pick up the ship as it rounds the island and will park it basically at the end of the jetty.
Dan Sutton, an American salt miner, is about to start harvesting salt from Djibouti's Lake Assal, the second lowest point on Earth after the Dead Sea.
The first thing I thought was, why hadn't it been developed before? Because it's this incredible natural resource next to deep water. So fortunately we're doing it now.
But if a border war breaks out between Djibouti and Eritrea, a lot of this economic growth could be in danger, including the ambitious plans being hatched right now to build a bridge to Yemen over the Red Sea. The project's main sponsor is Tariq bin Laden, Osama's half-brother and a Saudi construction magnate. The bridge is estimated to cost in the tens of billions of American dollars.
You know, the Horn of Africa is one of the poorest regions in Africa because of all kinds of conflicts. We have Somalia, we have the conflicts between Ethiopia and Eritrea, the situation in Sudan, that we don't need another confrontation, another war between countries in the region.
Djiboutians are confident that if Eritrea invades, the American military, along with the French, would rush to the rescue. The American and French bases here support war-fighting operations around the world. But they are also used for humanitarian work. It's part of the American military strategy to win hearts and minds in this predominantly Muslim region. Concerts seem to be a big hit in this small, dusty country on the eve of great change and facing great tension. This is Jeffrey Gettleman from Djibouti for the New York Times.
can the situation Thank you, Mr. President, for this interview for the French newspaper Le Monde. I'm very pleased to be here in Asmara. My first question is concerning the border dispute between Eritrea and Djibouti. What do you answer to this problem? What happened?
It's a question asked many times these few days, and we have an official position and response. We may need some time to know in depth the details and the reasons behind this fabrication. We have some information, but we need time. But in any case, we have made it very clear that we will not be invited to a new trouble or crisis that is being brewed in the region. We will never be invited to join in an exchange of something fabricated for motives we don't know. We have to take some time to understand the motives. We need to collect more information in depth and make our mind, because this fabrication must have come with a motive. And without understanding the motive clearly, you cannot be invited to a diplomatic, PR or propaganda exchange. We are not interested in that kind of exercise.
So does it mean that your army didn't enter in Djibouti? No.
Never. We never do that. It's not a matter of denying. This has nothing to do with denying or not denying. This is a fabrication with a motive. And as I said, we would like to know the motive behind this fabrication. We need time for that. But we are not engaging in any diplomatic, propaganda or PR exercise without exactly knowing the motive behind this fabrication. I emphasize fabrication, and you know what fabrication means.
Mm-hmm. But who is behind?
We need to know more. We are working on that. We need a lot of information. We have already collected a lot of information, but we need to collect more to know better what the motive of this fabrication is.
But I suppose you have one idea of who is behind.
I will not at the moment make any comment until I collect all the necessary information behind the fabrication of, or the motive of this fabrication.
Okay. Concerning the border dispute between Eritrea and Ethiopia, how can the situation be deadlocked?
It's disloyed, legally and practically. Legally, according to the Algiers Agreement, a commission was established. Commission gave its decision 6 years ago, April 2002, and 6 years because of obstacles put in the implementation of the final and binding decision by the United States in particular, in the Security Council and the United Nations. For 5 years, the United States has blocked the implementation of this decision, contrary to international law and to the respect of the rule of law and the agreement signed. And finally, last year, the Commission decided to virtually demarcate the border. So the border is legally and practically resolved.
Do you think a new war may occur between your two countries?
You can speculate, but I am not in a position to speculate. I don't see any reason for speculating. Another war coming, as I have indicated earlier a number of times, we have a legal case which is resolved by a decision of a tribunal or a commission. Demarcation is complete in the most perfect ways, and we don't see any reason for this. We are appealing to the Security Council and the United Nations to respect the rule of law and commit itself to its obligations, which is the appropriate way of addressing this issue. At the moment, we don't see otherwise. We don't see any other option except to call for the implementation and the respect of the rule of law and the decision.
Mm-hmm. It's a responsibility of United States. It's very engaged. It's really engaged in this problem.
Not at all. The United States has become a party to this conflict. So the paradox is the United States, as I indicated earlier, has blocked and blocked and blocked the implementation of this decision within the Security Council. And the other aspect of it is the United States or the administration in Washington is a member of the Security Council. So how do you compromise or complement between the two? It's a very complicated situation, but we believe the United States has by default become party to this conflict by blocking the decision of the Commission for 6 years almost.
Now, how do you explain this situation and the position of the United States?
I can only talk about the legal implication. The United States or the administration in Washington does not have any right legally to block the implementation of the agreements and the decision. But looking at it from the other side, we can say the United States or the administration in Washington has become one of the most notorious violators of human rights and international law. In the last how many years since the end of the Cold War, the United States or the administration in Washington has violated international law again and again, again and again, again and again. This behavior is part of the psychology of what people call neocons, or I call them lords of the New World Order. There is no respect for international law. These people think they can get away with anything. They may have their own ambitions and strategy globally, but respect of international law, respect of international and regional institutions is not in their agenda. So that could be a political explanation of this behavior. But legally speaking, we abide by the agreements, we respect the agreements and the rule of law, and we would like to see this matter settled in a legal manner. But if you ask why the United States administration or administration in Washington is doing this, you don't need someone to come and explain to you about this behavior. I can cite examples and examples, examples and examples, which will give an idea about the behavior of the United States, or what people call neocons, as I indicated earlier, especially after the end of the Cold War.
Regarding the situation in Somalia, is it true that you have soldiers in Somalia?
First and foremost, Somalis don't need soldiers from outside. You know it, everybody knows it. Somalis don't need this. We were at one point accused of having 2,000 troops in Mogadishu, not Somalia. The United Nations came up with a statement, and we said this is a fabrication. And when the American and the Ethiopian troops invaded Mogadishu, there was no soldier in Mogadishu from Eritrea, which proved that the allegations were a total lie. We are accused of providing weapons for this and that every time by an agency called, I don't know exact name, but they call it a UN agency for monitoring something like supply of weapons to Somalia. They have come with a number of fabrications. The timing of their statements has on a number of occasions provoked a number of questions. What is the motive of this agency if it has a mandate to monitor the flow of weapons in Somalia? How does it do its job? Does this agency know who is bringing in weapons in Somalia, or is it an agency used or even abused or misused for pointing fingers at anybody the United States doesn't like? That's what it seems from my experience with all the statements and reports I have seen. The recent statement was about an anti-air missile weapon captured, quote unquote, by who we don't know in Somalia, and this committee verified that a Russian company gave them the information that this weapon was sold to Eritrea 20 years or 15 years ago, which is not true. And the question comes, why these lies? But again, I would say lies have become part of the culture, the political culture. Telling lies about weapons of mass destruction, telling lies about terrorism, telling lies about everything, and then covering up or basing a decision on the spread of lies. And then when your lies are exposed, you come up with other lies and try to cover them up. When you fail to achieve something, you accuse someone who is not even involved in such a case. So it's good to understand it with a context, within a context of the behavior of these neocons or the lords of the New World Order, who base their decisions or their information on lies, lie to their own people, and above anyone else, they lie to their US citizens, where now you find more than 70% of the citizens in the United States disapprove of the policies of this government, domestic and foreign, because of the continuous and repetitive lies, because of failed policies. So we can only understand these pieces and bits and bytes by putting them within a context. Addressing them separately may not mean much. It may be very misleading, but for us it has become very trendy. It's a pattern of behavior that repeats itself again and again. And it's a cover-up of the failure of the United States in Somalia, its policies in the Horn of Africa. You go on and talk about all the package of policies for the administration in Washington in the Horn of Africa. All policies have proved to be failures. So how can you persuade people that these policies have not worked? You can only do that by either telling lies or trying to find scapegoats and pointing fingers at people. So I'm not surprised, knowing what I know and what everybody knows, this trendy behavior is the only explanation for what people talk about Somalia, the presence of Eritrean troops in Somalia, weapons here and there. It's become like something. It's become a business of the day where everybody doesn't need any explanation when any statement or report comes from the administration in Washington. Some of the reports are fed into the UN agencies, and unfortunately the United Nations from top to bottom is being used, and that's one of the policies of the administration in Washington to hegemonize and influence. They will have to use all international and regional organizations, and we say the United Nations and the Security Council have become hostage to this administration.
You're watching Eri TV from the headquarters in Asmara.
How do you see the situation in Somalia? Hey, we have a meeting in Djibouti with some groups, rebel groups, and the so-called government. Do you see it could be? Can we wait some result from that meeting?
Again, I'll take you back to the context. This is a meeting, from my information, orchestrated by the United States and the State Department in Washington. And the United Nations is being used as cover-up. When the United States is bombing Somalia every now and then, when the United States has made a mistake by interrupting the political process that started 2 years ago between the Baidoa transitional government and the situation in Mogadishu, when the Islamic courts were there, a number of regional organizations initiated talks. That was interrupted because the United States or the administration in Washington preferred to invade Mogadishu and asked the Islamic courts, and we were told the Islamic courts are disbanded, they're finished, they no more exist, and no one is talking to them. That was a big mistake. I'm not talking about the operational military issues on the ground, but politically that was a mistake. The United States felt it could solve or quick fix the matter by removing the courts from Mogadishu. Now, after the failure of this option, the United States is using the United Nations as a cover-up for initiating some kind of negotiation, which I believe you cannot be a facilitator on the one hand and a party to the conflict at the same time. And this is obvious for everyone in the region. Above anything else, it's obvious for the Somalis, who say, your adversary cannot be an honest broker. Your enemy cannot be an honest broker. Your enemy, whatever the guise, United Nations, African Union, or whatever, cannot be an honest broker in facilitating the creation of an environment for Somalis to solve their problem, not for someone else to come solve it. So the problem for the administration in Washington is it has tried and failed to impose a solution in Somalia. When everybody was saying it's wrong, don't do that. Now this happened, and now they're trying to use the United Nations to bring some groups, maybe to weaken the resistance, which has proved effective in Somalia. After this invasion we have witnessed for more than 1 year, it's proved very effective, and the quick fix or the bulldozing option did not work. And now it's another ploy, to my understanding, by the administration in Washington, and using always the veil of the United Nations to give the impression that it is facilitating a solution. So what can you expect from such an attempt?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we talk of the political situation here in Eritrea?
Again, I will take you back to the same context. I will not go to a beauty salon and do maquillage to please the United States and have a good image. If you think that is the way of dealing with domestic politics, we are not prepared to do that. We are not going for a makeup. We are not going to beautify our image by coloring ourselves to please the administration in Washington. That would be a strategic political mistake. And when you talk about the image of Eritrea not being good, yes, it's not good in the eyes of the administration in Washington. And knowing the muscles and the weight of this administration in using the media globally, you know, no more than 8 or 9 conglomerates control the international media, direct or indirect. And their association with the administration in Washington is very obvious. You will find retired politicians, retired generals, multimillionaires, billionaires getting involved in this business of controlling the media. It's part of the strategy of the neocons, or the lords of the New World Order. The New World Order, in their eyes, is something that can be manipulated and controlled by this huge and complex media institution and facility or infrastructure. And with all that resource and all that energy and muscle, they can image small Eritrea in the ugliest manner. So I can assure you we're not going to an exercise where we will try to improve our image in front of these eyes who don't want to see Eritrea in its real image. Yes, politically, we have said time and again, our political process has been interrupted because of this war and because of the continuous intervention of the administration in Washington, because of the continuous intervention of the CIA in our internal politics. We have talked about this. I don't need to repeat what that means. And if anyone hired by the administration or the CIA is a political opponent, I say that is a national security risk for this country. That is not politics. But that's how politics is managed by administration in Washington and by the CIA. So we are saying there is a political process. It's been interrupted because of the abnormal circumstances we have gone through the last 10 years, but that is a small piece of time which could be overcome when the situation allows. The process will go on. No one can stop the process. They may interrupt the process, but they will not stop the process. If you talk about free press, political parties, this and that. I can talk about that for hours and hours and probably days. What the United States or even its allies would like to sell to underdeveloped countries, the idea of multipartyism, which is based on ethnicity, national and multinational polarization of communities. It's religious polarization. If you think that is multipartyism, we say we don't want that kind of multipartyism. Multipartyism in underdeveloped societies like Africa will have to go through a long social, economic, cultural process to reach a level where the cross-section of society with interest within a political situation will make choice. Polarizing society alongst ethnic, national, religious groups would not in any way benefit, and we have so many examples to cite. This is not the way Africa should address the question of pluralism. Free press, it's a world dominated by small interest groups who dominate everything, and I can say freedom of expression in Africa has been suffocated and is continually being suffocated because this overdose of the international media that controls everything and in fact manipulates politics sometimes through the media. And we are not in a position at the moment or even in the future to conform to that kind of an environment that suffocates freedom of expression and suffocates national political processes that should consummate their social, cultural, economic and political metamorphosis, I call all the time. It's sort of Byzantine to me to talk about multipartyism, freedom of press, and try to intimidate underdeveloped countries or communities by this overdose of programs motivated by domination and control. So it's a different story. It's not part of our culture to say, well, let's do this and that to please the United States or even please some parties who say, well, if a political situation that is not giving you a good image. It's again, I go back to the context. It's a political process. You can talk about democratization in France, you can talk about it in different contexts. It means different things. We call it a political process. We have to go through a long transformation, social, cultural, and basically economic and political.
Your own experience.
It's not our own experience, it's a reality. It's a reality in underdeveloped countries. And they have to choose the appropriate way of a political process that will take them to a higher stage, from one stage to another stage. It depends on the unique realities of one country and one people. You cannot copy the French experience or the French Revolution here. You cannot copy the experience of the United States or even governments elsewhere. It has to take a course, but ultimately it should safeguard the rights and the participation of populations in Africa.
How can the situation
سلما حرير سلما لا سروق ما باقما وسلما حرير سلما لا سروق ما باقما وسلما سلما سلما لا حرير ما باقما وسلما حرير سلما لا سروق ما باقما وسلما حرير سلما لا سروق ما باقما.
For the first time ever, an international news channel has been given authorized access to the front line between Djibouti and Eritrea. In mid-April 2008, Eritrea invaded the Ras Dumeira territory, a small piece of arid land and an islet strategically located at the entrance to the Red Sea. Despite backup by the French army, Djibouti was forced to draw back while its enemy enforced their positions with trenches. Since then, it's been a long wait in harsh conditions for the troops, but officially, the morale is good.
We are ready to reconquer our territory if this is the will of the executive power. The situation remains very tense between the two sides. Since the 11th of June, there have been no clashes. We've made it up to 500 meters from their position, but there have been no clashes.
Tanks of the Djibouti army are facing the enemy only 3 kilometers away. At the beginning of the conflict, the French army, which maintains important military headquarters here, provided various services to Djibouti, especially medical and intelligence services. It also played a dissuasive role which limited the Eritrean incursion, but the French soldiers who used to live in this camp have now been replaced by the Djibouti army. It's easy to find out details about how the front line is managed. Every month for their meals, the soldiers require 250 sheep. It's more difficult, however, getting information about the atmosphere and their state of mind. It's always the same words: everything is fine, the morale is good.
Here is the advanced logistical camp. Our mission is to provide full support to elements operating on the front line. Vehicle maintenance, weaponry, and logistics. That's water, food, and ammo. And I can tell you, the morale of our troops is up 100%.
Despite the apparent calm, the Djibouti army claims to have been on maximum alert since December 15. Eritrea has asked Djibouti to hand in all deserters caught on its soil. If Djibouti doesn't cooperate, Asmara threatens to attack. But apparently, there have never been so many deserters crossing this front line.
We have the feeling that morale really isn't good on their side. To illustrate this, I can tell you that in the past 15 days, we've welcomed 10 deserters here.
Djibouti soldiers do not know how long they're going to have to stay on this front. After 8 months, boredom is gaining ground, but officially no desertion